Power up Google and search the most beautiful cars of the 70s and 80s, and you'll be bathed in the delights of models like the Ford Mustang Boss 429, Aston Martin V8 Vantage, AMG Hammer, Lamborghini Countach, and the Chevrolet Camaro IROC Z. But what about the cars at the other end of the handsome spectrum? The motor industry's unloved motors that gobbled up cash in depreciation and repairs, cost some car makers their reputations, and those people unfortunate enough to buy them their sanity. The ones so grisly only a mother would love them. Let's take a look. AMC Pacer. Let's start with the AMC Pacer. Known as the car with a body almost as wide as it was long, the 1975 AMC Pacer is a two-door compact automobile that was produced in the United States by the American Motors Corporation between 1975 and 1980. Advertised as the first wide car, it was a small vehicle designed with an anticipation of an increase in demand for smaller vehicles through the decade because of the gasoline situation. The AMC Pacer's low-drag design, a low-drag coefficient, and the smooth blending of the tops of the doors into the roof all predate today's car design. It was also among the first production cars in the US to feature rack and pinion steering. Inside's a sporty front bucket seat and a polyurethane dash. It has the largest glass area of any contemporary American sedan. Although American car buyers bought 70,000 Pacers in 1975 alone, they did that to save on gas, though it turned out that the Pacer wasn't economical at all. One of the 70s iconic ugly cars, the 1975 AMC Pacer was even seen in Disney's Cars 2. General Motors X Cars. From the quirky Pacer, we move on to a series of cars from General Motors that, well, might just make the Pacer look good in comparison, the GMX cars. These are the series of cars designed by General Motors in the 70s and 80s, but they turned out to be remembered for being the most poorly performing and dangerous series of cars ever produced in the United States. Starting with the Chevrolet Citation, every first and second year model was riddled with so many problems that they quickly became the king of recalls. The brakes were laughably small, comparable to those on a Yugo, and the carburetors were defective right from the start. To make matters worse, these cars had a notorious reputation for hood cylinders that were guaranteed to need replacing in under 30,000 miles. Next in line was the V6-powered Pontiac Phoenix, a car that shared not only the Citation's underwhelming aesthetics, but also its laundry list of issues. Among its most infamous flaws was a tendency for windows to simply fall inside the door. Then there was the Buick Skylark, which suffered from weak struts that failed prematurely and electronics that seemed to break as a matter of routine. Another one is the ugly duckling in the front-wheel drive set, the Oldsmobile Omega. This car was a record holder for fluid leaks, brake failures, and general poor quality. To top it off, it had a design only a mother could love, plug ugly and unappealing. Hardly anybody bought one of these, and people with impaired sight usually don't operate a moving vehicle, so their buyers were somewhat limited. Ford Mustang II Ghia. Now, we can't talk about iconic cars without mentioning the Ford Mustang II, but unfortunately, this one didn't make a lot of fans. The Ford Mustang II, produced from 1974 to 1978, is often considered one of the least beloved models in the Mustang's history for several reasons, especially in the context of the 1970s and 1980s. The Mustang II represented a dramatic shift away from the high-performance muscle car image that had defined the Mustang throughout the 1960s. Faced with the oil crisis and changing consumer preferences, Ford made the decision to downsize its trendsetter. The goal was to create a smaller, more fuel-efficient car, but in doing so, the company sacrificed much of the performance and power that loyal pony enthusiasts had come to expect. Under the hood, the Mustang II came with an underwhelming engine option, particularly when compared to the legendary V8s that had made earlier models iconic. The standard engine was a 2.3-liter four-cylinder, and even the V8 versions offered far less power than those in the previous generation. This left many fans disappointed and led to the perception that it lacked the excitement and performance of its predecessors. The Mustang II was built during a time when Ford, like many automakers, was struggling with quality control. The car had a reputation for being poorly constructed, with issues like rusting, weak paint finishes, and unreliable electrical components. Motor Trend called it a national tragedy and labeled its appearance as silly, especially with features like its padded vinyl roof and color-keyed bumpers. AMC Gremlin. Like the AMC Pacer, the AMC Gremlin's another car that gave American Motors Company the nickname of the car company that made weird cars. Produced from 1970 to 1978, the AMC Gremlin's often regarded as one of the more unusual and controversial cars of the 1970s. In 2009, Businessweek called it one of the ugliest cars of the past 50 years, and Time magazine stuck it with being one of the 50 worst cars of all time. The Gremlin was marketed as a budget-friendly option, selling for two-thirds the price of most small cars at the time, which felt fitting given that it looked like two-thirds of a car. Built on a shortened Hornet platform, the car featured a cam backtail and a polarizing design. Its short, stubby body and awkward proportions gave it an unusual aesthetic, with the truncated rear end making it appear boxy and incomplete. While it was intended to be a compact, economical vehicle, its quirky design made it stand out in a less than positive way. Despite its looks, the Gremlin was a stroke of corporate brilliance. Cheap to develop and well-suited to the economic pressures of its era, it became a surprising sales success, at least by AMC's modest standards. Still, one can't help but wonder, did it really have to be so ugly? Chevrolet Vega. Moving on from the Gremlin, we have the Chevrolet Vega, which earned its place on the worst list for its engine issues. The Chevrolet Vega was an early attempt by General Motors to break into the fuel-efficient compact car market. Unfortunately, the Vega quickly earned a reputation for consuming not gasoline, but motor oil. The Vega's aluminum engine just wasn't up to the job, and according to various sources, the cars were plagued by mechanical problems, including a hearty appetite for lubricants. Premature rusting was another commonly reported issue. The body and chassis of the car were poorly protected from corrosion, and the rust issues began appearing on many cars within just a few years of ownership. This made the Vega not only unsightly, but also a poor investment in the long run, as it was prone to rotting out well before it should have. Although every Vega came equipped with a 122 inline-4, it offered buyers 4 body styles to choose from. The hatchback provided some cargo capacity, making it a practical choice for daily use. The wagon allowed a family of 4 to comfortably take a vacation. Most felt that the notchback was just plain ugly. Lastly, the panel-sided delivery body offered small businesses an affordable and efficient way to transport light loads around town. Ford Pinto. Up next is Ford Pinto. One little car, so many problems. The Ford Pinto, produced from 1971 to 1980, is often regarded as one of the worst cars of the 1970s and 80s, primarily due to its design flaws and the safety scandals that surrounded it. The most infamous issue with the Pinto was its fuel tank design. The car's gas tank was located behind the rear axle, which made it extremely vulnerable to rupture and rear-end collisions. The Pinto's gas tank would often rupture in low-speed accidents, leading to fires and, in some cases, fatalities. That's not really a good selling point for the Pinto, but neither was this car's lackluster design. It was decidedly dull with nothing attractive to save it from being a bore. It was all wide expanses of metal that just sort of melded into one amorphous blob. Car enthusiasts don't want to drive around in an amorphous blob, especially one known for catching fire. The reason behind this might be that Ford Pinto was rushed into production to fight imported subcompact cars. In the 1960s and 70s, the typical car took 43 months to design and build. Pinto had just 25. Morris Marina. From the US to the UK, we come to the Morris Marina, produced by British Leyland from 1971 to 1980. The Morris Marina is one such car that has been labeled by some as the worst vehicle ever built. This small family car was first built in 1948. Despite its many shortcomings, it was very popular in Britain. The Marina went from drawing board to production in a mere 18 months, but this breakneck speed came at a cost. The idea was to keep it simple to get it on sale ASAP, but that meant some good ideas were dropped before production. A poorly designed suspension setup combined with a live rear axle resulted in dismal handling. The rear end was prone to bump steer on rough roads, making for a jittery ride. Early models, particularly those equipped with a heavier 1.7-liter engine, suffered from severe understeer due to incorrect front suspension components being used during production. Another quirk involved the windscreen wipers, which were installed backward. Engineers noticed they lifted off the windscreen when in a vertical position, which was deemed distracting. Rather than fix the issue, they opted to flip the wipers around, calling it a day. The performance didn't do the Marina any favors either, equipped with an underpowered inline-4 engine and horrible reliability issues. This is a car you wouldn't want to wish upon your worst enemy. Lancia Beta. Lastly, we have the Lancia Beta, an entry-level luxury car produced by Italian car manufacturer Lancia after it was taken over by Fiat from 1972 to 1984. The first body style introduced, and by far the most common, was the 4-door Berlina sedan. It featured a 2,540mm 100-inch wheelbase and a sleek fastback design that gave it the appearance of a hatchback, although in fact it had a conventional boot like a saloon. This was a common approach at the time, as manufacturers believed hatchback designs would not be well received in this market segment. Next came the 2+2 two-door coupe, built on a shorter 93-inch wheelbase. Following that was the Spider, known as the Zagato in the US, a two-door convertible that used the coupe's shorter wheelbase. It featured a Targa-style removable roof panel, a roll bar, and a folding rear roof. The final body style was a three-door sporting estate or shooting brake called the HPE. HPE initially stood for High Performance Estate, but was later rebranded as High Performance Executive. This model combined the longer wheelbase of the Berlina with the coupe's front end and doors. One of the most notorious problems with the Lancia Beta was its susceptibility to rust. The car's body, particularly the chassis and floor panels, was prone to rusting much earlier than expected. Still, one good thing came out of the car. It prompted Lancia to launch a 6-year anti-corrosion warranty, a first for the UK market. Well, that wraps up our look at the worst cars of the 70s and 80s. From design fails to performance nightmares, these cars left a lasting impression for all the wrong reasons. Which one shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments. Join the ride by subscribing for more epic videos. Thanks for watching.